Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. Some moments divide your life into before and after. This was one of them. Late October in Baltimore. Sunday evening. I was in the kitchen of our Federal Hill row house, doing what I did every Sunday, chopping chicken for the week's meal prep. The rhythmic sound of the knife on the cutting board. The smell of fresh vegetables. Everything ordinary. Jennifer was on the couch with her phone. Instagram, probably. She didn't look up when she spoke. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice casual. Too casual. "I'm not sure I'm in love with you anymore." I stopped mid-chop. "But I do like having you around," she continued, still scrolling. "You're comfortable. Life is easier with you here." Just like that. Like she was commenting on the weather. I stopped mid-chop and really looked at her. She was still scrolling through Instagram. Completely casual, like she hadn't just said something that would change everything. "Could you repeat that?" I asked. She finally glanced up, a little annoyed at being interrupted. "I've been thinking about us lately. I'm not sure I'm in love with you anymore. But I do like having you around. You're comfortable. You make my life easier." The knife in my hand suddenly felt heavier. Most guys would probably start panicking right about here. Start asking 100 questions, maybe even begging for an explanation. But you know what I did? I set down the knife, wiped my hands on a towel, walked over, and said, "Thank you for being honest." The confusion on her face was something else. Her eyes widened slightly. She clearly expected drama, tears, maybe me fighting for our marriage, pleading with her to reconsider. Instead, I just nodded like she'd given me useful information. Because she had. "So if I understand correctly," I continued, keeping my voice calm and measured, "you see me as someone convenient to have around. Someone who makes your life easier. But you're not sure if you actually love me. Is that accurate?" She shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds harsh." "Not harsh at all. Actually, it makes perfect sense." I could see her relaxing a bit, thinking I was going to let this slide. "And since you've been so clear about how you see things, I think it's only fair that I adjust my behavior accordingly." I went back to the kitchen and finished the meal prep. But this time, I only portioned out enough for myself. Container after container, just my meals for the week. "What are you doing?" she asked, sitting up now, paying attention. "Meal prep. You're only making enough for you." That's right. Roommates don't typically meal prep for each other unless it's specifically arranged beforehand. And that's essentially what you just described, right? Her eyes widened. "Roommates. That's essentially what you described, isn't it? Someone you like having around because they make your life easier, but without the love part?" I sealed the last container with a satisfying snap. "I'm just giving you exactly what you asked for." "Brian, don't be dramatic. You know what I meant." "Actually, I think you were quite clear. But if I misunderstood, please correct me. Do you love me or don't you?" The pause was too long. Way too long. I counted the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. "I don't know," she finally whispered. "Then until you do know, I'll be exactly what you said you wanted. Someone convenient and reliable. Like a good roommate." I headed for the stairs, my meal prep containers in hand. I'm moving my pillow to the guest room. Roommates don't share beds. "What? Brian, that's ridiculous." I paused on the stairs and turned back. "Is it? You just told me you don't know if you love me. Why would I share a bed with someone who's unsure about their feelings for me? That would be awkward for both of us." Her mouth opened and closed. No words came out. That night, lying in the guest room bed, I heard her moving around restlessly in our old bedroom. The floorboards creaking. The bathroom door opening and closing. For just a moment, I almost went to comfort her. But then I remembered, roommates don't comfort each other about relationship problems. That would be overstepping boundaries. The next morning, everything changed. Jennifer came downstairs Monday morning in her usual routine, hair still damp from the shower, expecting her usual setup. But there was no coffee waiting. No breakfast. Just me at the kitchen table with my own meal, reading the news on my tablet. The kitchen was quiet except for the occasional tap as I scrolled. "Where's my coffee?" she asked, looking around confused. I glanced up briefly. "Coffee maker's right there. Same place it's always been." "But you always make me coffee in the morning." "That was when I was your husband," I said, going back to my tablet. "But according to our conversation yesterday, I'm more like a roommate who makes your life easier. And roommates typically handle their own coffee." She stared at me for a long moment. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting for me to crack, to admit I was joking. Then she laughed. It was a nervous laugh, uncertain. Come on, don't be dramatic. You know what I meant. Actually, I think you were quite clear. I finished my breakfast, stood up, and rinsed my plate in the sink. You like having me around because I'm convenient and reliable. So I'm going to be exactly that. Like a good roommate. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door. Oh, and I'll be splitting all the household expenses 50-50 from now on. I'll email you a breakdown. Have a good day. The look on her face as I walked out was a mixture of confusion and something else. Maybe the first tiny hint that she hadn't thought this through as well as she'd imagined. At work that day, I felt lighter than I had in months. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For years, I'd been pouring emotional energy into someone who saw me as a convenience. Now that the cards were on the table, I could stop pretending. My coworker Greg noticed immediately. You seem different today, he said when I walked in. Do I? Yeah, I don't know. Lighter or something. I just smiled and went to my desk. That afternoon, I sent Jennifer a detailed email breaking down every household expense. Mortgage payment, utilities, groceries, streaming services, internet, everything. All split exactly 50-50. I even included a spreadsheet with formulas. When I got home that evening, she was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed. That look on her face that used to make me immediately ask what was wrong. We need to talk about this morning, she said. What about it? You were being petty. Making coffee isn't a big deal. I set my keys down on the counter and turned to face her. You're absolutely right. Making coffee isn't a big deal. Neither is making breakfast, or remembering your favorite meals, or listening to you complain about your coworkers for an hour every night. None of those things are a big deal when you love someone. I paused, letting that sink in. Let her hear what I was really saying. But you just told me you don't know if you love me. So why would I do any of those things? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. For the first time in years, she didn't have a quick comeback. Look, I continued, keeping my voice calm. I'm not angry. I'm actually grateful. You've helped me understand exactly where I stand. You like having me around because I make your life easier. So that's what I'll do. I'll be here. I'll be reliable. I'll make sure my half of everything gets handled. But all those extra things I used to do, those were for someone I thought loved me back. The expression on her face told me she was starting to realize that her moment of honesty might have cost her more than she'd bargained for. The next few days followed the same pattern. I made my own breakfast, grabbed my own coffee, headed out with a polite, have a good day. No kiss goodbye, no asking about her plans. Wednesday, her car wouldn't start. In the past, I would have immediately jumped into action. This time, when she called, I said, that's frustrating. You should call AAA. That's what it's for. Can't you just? I'm in the middle of something at work. AAA will take care of you. The shock in her voice was obvious. That evening, she tried to talk about her day. Some drama with a client. Usually, I would sit with her for an hour, helping her process everything. This time, I listened politely while making my dinner. That sounds frustrating, I said when she paused. She waited for more. When nothing came, she looked confused. I hope you work it out. I'm going to eat in the guest room and read. Thursday evening, she suggested pizza and a movie. Like we used to. Sure. What do you want to watch? Her face lit up. How about that new romantic comedy? Actually, I was thinking more like a documentary. Something roommate appropriate. I pulled out my phone. I'll order my own pizza. What do you want on yours? My own pizza? Well, yeah. We're splitting expenses now, remember? She stared at me. This is ridiculous. Is it? Roommates split expenses. It's actually pretty standard. That night, we ate separate pizzas while watching a nature documentary. She kept trying to start conversations about us, but I redirected everything to safe topics. The weather, current events. By Friday, I could see the first real cracks in her composure. She came downstairs wearing one of my old t-shirts. That move women pull when they want to remind you of intimacy. Morning, she said, lingering by the coffee maker. Morning, I replied, grabbing my travel mug and heading for the door. Wait, don't you want to know about my dream last night? I paused. Why would I want to know about your dream? She blinked. We used to share our dreams with each other. Yeah, couples do that. People in love do that. But roommates? Not so much. That would be kind of weird, don't you think? The hurt on her face was obvious, but I kept moving. She had made the rules. I was just following them. The weekend was when things really started to sink in. Saturday morning, she suggested the farmer's market like we used to do every weekend. Already went this morning, I said. Got everything I needed. You went without me? Didn't think you'd want to come. That feels more like a couple's activity. Sunday, I went to my friend Tom's house to watch football. You never go to Tom's on Sundays, she said. That's because I never had free time on Sundays before. I was always here, doing couple things. But now I have time for myself. When I got home that evening, I could tell she'd been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. Everything okay? I asked in the same tone you'd use with a roommate. She nodded quickly. I headed to the guest room to read. Week 2 started with Jennifer pulling out all the stops. The second Monday morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. My favorites. When I came downstairs, she had the whole spread laid out. Fresh fruit, bacon, orange juice, even flowers on the table. Surprise, she said with forced cheerfulness. I made your favorite breakfast. I stood in the doorway. This looks great. What's the occasion? No occasion. I just wanted to do something nice. That's sweet of you, but I already ate. I held up the protein bar I'd grabbed. Plus, this seems like a lot of work just for roommates. Her smile faltered. Come on, just sit down and eat with me. I'm not really comfortable with this. This feels like you're trying to create some kind of romantic scene, and that doesn't really fit our current arrangement. Our current arrangement is stupid. There it was. The mask finally slipping. Why is it stupid? I asked calmly. Because we're married, Brian. Are we? Or are we roommates who happen to share a last name? I leaned against the doorframe. You told me exactly how you felt. I'm simply respecting those feelings. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it then? Because you were pretty specific. You like having me around because I'm convenient and reliable, but you don't know if you love me anymore. Those were your exact words. She started clearing the table aggressively, slamming plates. You're being deliberately obtuse. No, I'm being logical. You set the parameters. I'm operating within them. I check my watch. I'm heading to the gym. Enjoy your breakfast. Tuesday, Jennifer called in sick to work. She wasn't actually sick. When I came home, she was waiting in the living room. We need to reset this whole thing, she announced. This roommate nonsense has gone on long enough. I sat down across from her. Why would we reset? You're getting exactly what you asked for. That's not what I asked for. Isn't it, though? I pulled out my phone. Let me read you something. I'd written down her exact words that first night. You said, and I quote, I'm not sure I'm in love with you anymore, but I like having you around. You're comfortable. You make my life easier. I looked up. What part of my current behavior doesn't align with what you said you wanted? Her face went pale. You're twisting my words. I'm not twisting anything. I'm taking them at face value. I put my phone away. You want someone who makes your life easier without the emotional complexity of actually loving them. That's what you have now. Wednesday evening, she tried a different approach. When I came home, she was wearing lingerie under a silk robe. I miss being close to you, she said, letting the robe fall open. I glanced over, then back at the TV. That's inappropriate. Inappropriate. Yeah, roommates don't do this kind of thing. I changed the channel. You might want to put some clothes on. The rejection hit her hard. She wrapped the robe tight and stared at me. You don't find me attractive anymore. What I find attractive isn't relevant to our current arrangement. Physical intimacy is for people who love each other. Since you don't know if you love me, it wouldn't be appropriate. She started crying then. Not quiet tears, but full sobbing. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said what I said. Which part was the mistake? Saying you don't know if you love me, or admitting it out loud? Both. Neither. I don't know. See, that's the problem. You don't know. You don't know if you love me. You don't know if what you said was a mistake. You don't know what you want. I unmuted the TV. Until you figure out what you do know, I think our current arrangement works perfectly. That night, she came to the guest room, stood in the doorway looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Can we please just talk? Like we used to? We are talking. We talk every day. You know what I mean. Really talk. About us. What about us? You've been very clear about your feelings. I've adjusted accordingly. What else is there to discuss? I want things to go back to how they were. Before what? Before you told me how you really felt about me? I shook my head. You can't unring that bell. So that's it. You're just done? I'm not done. I'm here. I'm being exactly what you said you wanted. I picked up my book again. The difference is now I know where I stand. And honestly, it's a relief. What if I said I do love you? She whispered. I looked up at her. Do you? The pause was too long. The uncertainty was still there. I thought so, I said. Good night. By the end of week 2, I was thriving. Gym 5 days. 2 books finished. Started photography classes online. Turns out when you stop pouring emotional energy into someone who doesn't appreciate it, you have a lot more energy for yourself. Friday night, I stayed late at work to help my coworker Greg with a project. When I got home at 9, Jennifer was waiting with dinner she'd made for both of us. You're late. Yeah, helped Greg with something. Already grabbed food on the way home. You grabbed something? You used to call when you'd be late. I turned back. Did I? Why would I do that? So I wouldn't worry. So I could plan dinner accordingly. But why would you worry about me? And why would you plan dinner for me? We're not. I mean, you made it pretty clear that we're not in that kind of relationship anymore. She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Week 3 brought new levels of desperation. Sunday afternoon, Jennifer pulled out our old photo albums. Wedding pictures, honeymoon, anniversaries. She'd been crying over them. Look at these, she said. Look how happy we were. I glanced at them. Those are nice memories. They're not just memories. They're proof that what we had was real. Was being the operative word. Past tense. It doesn't have to be past tense, doesn't it? Because the woman in those photos told me 2 weeks ago that she doesn't know if she loves me anymore. So either she was lying then, or she's lying now. Either way, there's a lie somewhere. Monday, Jennifer had a crisis with her sister. Some family drama. Usually, I would have sat with her for hours, helping her work through it. This time, when she came to me crying about it, I said, that sounds frustrating. Hope you work it out. And I walked away. She followed me. That's it. You're not going to help me? Help you with what? Figure this out. Give me advice. Why would I do that? That's your family issue. Because. She started, then stopped. Because I loved her. Because I cared. But she'd already told me she didn't know if she loved me back. Roommates don't typically get involved in each other's family drama, I explained. That would be overstepping boundaries. Thursday evening, she finally cracked. We need to talk, she said, sitting across from me. Sure. What's up? This isn't working. I looked up from my book. What isn't working? Our arrangement seems perfect to me. Bills are split. House is clean. No drama. That's exactly the problem. I don't want a roommate. Well, that's unfortunate, because that's what you asked for. I set my book down. You specifically told me you like having me around because I'm convenient and reliable, but you don't know if you love me. So I'm being convenient and reliable. Mission accomplished. But I miss you caring about me. But I do care about you. I care exactly as much as a good roommate should. I make sure you're safe. I don't leave messes. I pay my share. That's caring. That's not what I mean, and you know it. No, I really don't. Because the kind of caring you're talking about comes from love. And you told me you don't know if you love me anymore. So why would you expect me to love you back? The silence was long and uncomfortable. I never said I didn't love you, she whispered. No, you said you didn't know if you love me, which is actually worse. Because it means you've been thinking about it, and you're genuinely unsure. I picked up my book again. At least if you'd said you didn't love me, I'd know it was definitive. This way, I'm just someone you're keeping around while you figure out your feelings. Week 4 brought Jennifer's most desperate tactics yet. During the 4th week, she called my mother. I was reading in the living room one evening when my phone rang. Your wife called me, Mom said when I answered. She's very upset. We talk every day, I said calmly. She says you're treating her like a roommate. That's accurate. There was a pause. Do you want to tell me what's going on? I explained the situation. My mother listened without interrupting. So let me understand this, she said. She told you she doesn't know if she loves you anymore, and you responded by treating her exactly how she described wanting to be treated. Correct. And now she's upset because she's getting what she asked for. That appears to be the case. My mother was quiet for a moment. I raised you better than to let people walk all over you. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. When I got off the phone, Jennifer was standing in the doorway. Your mother thinks I'm a terrible wife, she said quietly. My mother thinks you made a mistake, and now you're trying to avoid the consequences. I set my phone down. She's right. I know, Jennifer admitted. I know I made a mistake. A huge one. Which mistake was that? taking you for granted, thinking I could just test the waters of not loving you and you'd wait around. I closed my book. Why did you say it in the first place? She sat down. Because I was scared. Because loving you completely felt vulnerable and risky. And I thought if I pulled back emotionally, I'd feel more in control. And how did that work out for you? Terribly. I've never felt less in control in my life. She looked at me desperately. I know I love you. I know it now. Please, can we try to fix this? I studied her face. You know what the real problem is? It's not that you said you didn't know if you loved me. It's that you were willing to say it at all. It's that somewhere in your mind, you thought it was acceptable to tell your husband you weren't sure about your feelings for him. I know it was horrible. It wasn't just horrible. It was revealing. It showed me exactly how little my emotional well-being mattered to you in that moment. I stood up, and that's not something you can just apologize away. So there's nothing I can do? You're just done with us? I'm not done with us. But the yes you're talking about, where I love you unconditionally while you figure out whether you love me back. That version is done forever. The devastation on her face was complete. What happens now? She whispered. Now you decide whether you want to build something new with someone who values himself, or whether you'd rather find someone else who will let you test the waters of loving them. I headed toward the stairs. But either way, the man who used to beg for your affection is gone. You made sure of that. A few days later was Thanksgiving. By then, we'd been in this new arrangement for nearly a month. I spent it at my mother's house in Towson. Jennifer stayed home alone. Around 8 that evening, my phone rang. Please come home, she said, crying. I am home. I'm with family who actually values me. I value you. No, you value what I do for you. There's a difference. I stepped outside. I need to go. We're about to have dessert. Brian, please. Enjoy your evening, Jennifer. I hung up. That weekend felt like a turning point. Saturday, I helped my mother organize her garage. Sunday, I had brunch with my cousin. Simple things I hadn't made time for in years. When I got back Sunday afternoon, Jennifer was waiting. She looked terrible. How was your Thanksgiving? She didn't answer. Instead, she held out a letter. I wrote you something. Please read it. I read it. Full of apologies, declarations of love, promises to do better. When I finished, I folded it and handed it back. Words are easy, I said. You said words before. They hurt me. What do you want from me? Her voice broke. I want you to understand that some things can't be unsaid. That you don't get to tell someone you're not sure you love them and then expect everything to go back to normal. I know that. I know I can't take it back. But I'm trying. You're trying to convince me to go back to how things were. That's not the same thing as actually changing. Weeks 5 and 6 brought something different. Jennifer stopped all the manipulation tactics. No more guilt trips. No more dramatic scenes. No more seduction attempts. Instead, she just existed. Made her own coffee. Made her own meals. Handled her own problems. Gave me space. It was early December when I noticed the real change. I came home from work on a Thursday to find her cooking her own dinner. Not trying to make enough for me. Not creating some scene. Just handling her own needs. That smells good, I said. Thanks, she replied. There's extra if you want some, but I wasn't assuming. I paused. That was new. No expectation. No manipulation. Just an offer. I appreciate that. I already ate, but thank you. She nodded and went back to cooking. Later that evening, she sat down across from me. Not too close. Respecting boundaries. I wanted to thank you, she said quietly. I looked up. For what? For not letting me get away with it. For showing me what I actually lost. She took a breath. I spent 6 years taking you for granted, and it took losing you to realize what I had. You haven't lost me. I'm right here. No, the version of you that would do anything for me is gone. And honestly, good. That man deserved better than someone who wasn't sure if she loved him. It was the first genuine thing she'd said in weeks. So where does that leave us? I asked. I don't know, but I know I want to earn you back. The real way. Not by guilt or manipulation, but by actually being worthy of you. I studied her face. For the first time since this started, she wasn't asking me to fix it. She was accepting responsibility. That would take time, I said finally. A lot of time. I have time. And there would be conditions. Real ones. I'm listening. First, you don't get to decide when we're fixed. That's not your call anymore. Second, you prove you want this through actions, not words. And third, You accept that the man who used to beg for your attention is never coming back. Even if it takes years? She asked. Even if it takes years. She looked at me with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Not casual affection, but actual respect. Respect for someone who knew his own worth. Then I guess I'd better get started, she said. For the first time in almost 6 weeks, I smiled. Not because she'd won me back. She hadn't. But because she'd finally stopped trying to manipulate her way out of the consequences and started taking responsibility. The following week, in mid-December, I agreed to meet Jennifer at Zia's Cafe on Eastern Avenue. Neutral ground. We sat across from each other with our coffee. I don't know if we can get back what we had, I said honestly. I don't want what we had, she replied. I want something better. Better how? Where I appreciate you. Where I choose you. Not just keep you around because you're convenient. Where I'm vulnerable enough to admit I love you, even when it's scary. That's a good start, I said. Just a start. I know. I looked at her across the table. The woman who had casually told me she wasn't sure she loved me. The woman who had taken me for granted for years. The woman who was now, maybe, finally understanding what she'd lost. Here's what I need you to understand, I said. I may never fully trust you again. The man who loved you without question? He's gone. If we build something new, it's going to be different. I understand. And I'm still sleeping in the guest room. Still paying my own way. Still maintaining my own life. You earn your way back into mine. Slowly. I understand, she said again. We sat in silence, sipping our coffee. Through the window, I could see the Baltimore skyline, the lights coming on as evening approached. Can I ask you something? Jennifer said. Sure. When did you decide to do this? I thought about it. The moment you said you weren't sure if you loved me. That's when I realized I'd spent years being a service provider instead of a partner. And I decided right then that I was done. I never thought of it that way, she said quietly. You thought you could have security without vulnerability, comfort without commitment. But that's not how love works. She nodded, tears gathering. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo it. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I spent wondering if I was enough. You were always enough, she said quickly. That was never the problem. Then what was the problem? She was quiet for a long time. I was afraid of being too happy, too settled, too dependent on you. I thought if I pulled back, I'd feel more independent. And instead, you lost the one person who would have done anything for you. Yeah, instead of that. We finished our coffee as the sun set. When we stood to leave, there was an awkward moment. Hug. Handshake. Nothing. Jennifer solved it by simply saying, Thank you for meeting me. You're welcome. As I drove home, following her car through the familiar streets, I thought about the past 6 weeks. About how much had changed. About how much I had changed. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just clear. Clear about my worth. Clear about what I would and wouldn't accept. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I would never again be someone's convenient option. I would be someone's deliberate choice, or I would be alone. And honestly, I was okay with either outcome. When I pulled into our driveway behind Jennifer's car, I noticed she was sitting in hers, not getting out. I walked up to her window. She rolled it down. You okay? I asked. I'm scared. Scared that I've broken this beyond repair. Maybe you have, I said, not unkindly. Or maybe you've broken it into something that can be rebuilt into something better. Time will tell. How much time? I don't know. Months. Maybe longer. However long it takes for me to believe that you value me as much as I value myself. She nodded. I'll wait. Don't wait, I corrected. Live. Show me who you are when you're not taking me for granted. Show me who you become when you have to earn something instead of just having it. I stepped back from her car. Good night, Jennifer. Good night, Brian. That night, I lay in the guest room bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Thank you for not giving up on the possibility of us, even if you've given up on the old version. I thought about responding, then decided not to. Words were easy. She'd need to prove it through actions. But I saved the text anyway, because maybe, just maybe, she was finally starting to understand. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Not my coffee, just coffee brewing. When I went downstairs, Jennifer was already gone for work. But there was a note on the counter. Made coffee if you want some. No expectations. Just wanted the house to smell nice. Jay? It was a small thing. But it was different. Not service rendered in hope of reciprocation. Just a small kindness with no strings attached. I poured myself a cup and allowed myself the smallest bit of hope. Not hope that we'd go back to what we were. That version was dead and buried. But hope that maybe we could build something new. Something where both people chose each other every day. Where both people valued what they had instead of taking it for granted. It wouldn't be easy. It would take time. It would require Jennifer to fundamentally change how she approached love and commitment. But for the first time in 6 weeks, I thought it might actually be possible. I raised my coffee cup in a silent toast to the empty kitchen. To clarity. To self-respect. To the possibility that sometimes the best thing you can do for a relationship is to let it completely fall apart so it can be rebuilt on a better foundation. If Jennifer could do the work. If she could prove that she wanted me, not just what I provided. If. That was the word everything hung on now. And I was okay with that. Because I'd learned something crucial. I didn't need Jennifer to complete me. I was complete on my own. If she wanted to be part of my life, she'd have to earn it. And if she didn't, I'd be just fine. Better than fine, actually. I'd be free. She was learning that earning someone back is harder than keeping them in the first place. And I was learning that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is become someone you don't want to lose. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.